Thank you everybody for joining us today. My name is Ryan Mietl. I am the CEO of a company called RIVET Work. We are a workforce management platform for construction specialty contractors. Run you through our agenda first real quick. First, we're going to establish some common language about how to talk about both workforce management software and workforce management as a business practice. And then you're going to get to hear from our esteemed panelists here, and I'll introduce them here in just a second, where we'll talk about why workforce management, why is it important in construction, and what's the benefit of connecting an ERP system to your workforce management system, and just talk openly, generally about lessons learned, what it's like to implement a tool, why they chose to implement a tool in their businesses. And this is a small group, so it's really intimate. So basically at any point in the entire session, if you have questions, just raise your hand and we'll answer the questions. We'll give them to the panel. So I'm just here to moderate, so other than a small bit of soapbox here at the start. But as you can see, our goal here is to tie your operations team, to help you learn why it's important to tie your operations team with the rest of your business. And so without further ado, I'll introduce our panel. So first, there's me. I'm, again, President and CEO of RIVET Work. My background's in electrical. I'm an electrical engineer by training. I worked in lighting for a while before I started this company. And lighting is much maligned in the electrical construction world, which is where I learned about the pain that my now customers dealt with in labor on a daily basis. Also joining us is David Pelayo. David's the Director of Technology and Human Resources at CSI Electrical Construction. CSI is one of the largest electrical contractors in the United States. They have well over 1,000 workers in the field. They're extremely diversified in the type of work and projects that they do, and David's in a very unique position where he's both the head of IT and human resources at CSI. Also, we have Brian joining us. So Brian is one of the first employees of not RIVET, but the first workforce management platform built specifically for the construction industry. And he's our Vice President of Customer Success here at RIVET. And then also we have Gary Fuchs. And so Gary is a customer advisor at RIVET. He's also a 45-year construction veteran, where he last served as Vice President of Construction Operations at Westfall & Company, which is like a pretty large electrical construction company based out of Madison, Wisconsin. And I will also now hand it over and let each of the panelists add a little more color to themselves.
No, I appreciate it. Everybody appreciate the time too. Obviously, I don't have the gray hair that some of our panel does, but I think I'll be able to hopefully share just over the last few years, been very fortunate to talk to thousands of contractors around the globe, honestly, at this point, about just workforce management. So all I'm really here to do is help relay some consistencies that we've discovered over those years talking to those groups, and some constant challenges, and there are just potentially some ways to circumnavigate or to manage around some of those things. So that's my big purpose being here. These guys to my left, I just want to kind of harp on them for a second. Got to work with them over the course of a few years. CSI has been doing workforce management before we first met at a different time and place. But they're doing things at a scale that proves you can start to standardize and get this consistency and accuracy across multiple business units, multiple divisions, thousands of people. Gary, my friend to the left here, I always like to say he was the grandfather of workforce management. When we came across Gary, he was doing things back in the 2000s that we had just started to sniff out, and that was all we were trying to do. So really today, where Gary and I are probably going to come from is a whole lot of emphasis on the process and the business practice. David's going to be able to share a lot of kind of how the tech comes into it, but you really are today. Please ask questions and such, because I have spoken to most groups in this country about this stuff, and these guys are doing it better than the majority I've come across. So.
Hi everyone, my name is David Pelayo. So I work for CSI, and my role here is just to bring the customer experience, how we've experienced this labor RIVET, and how it's helped our business.
Thank you. I'm Gary Fox. I started in the electrical industry in 1977 as an apprentice electrician, and lived within inside the same four walls of Westfall & Company for 40 plus years. Got involved in workforce management prior to even platforms being available. I did some things with our company that turned out to be kind of revolutionary in a way. Started managing more as a group of people than from a superintendent standpoint and a labor manager. It was pretty controversial at first, and I wasn't the most popular guy in the company by doing so, but as time went on and the platforms became available and our company's processes were already set up to be able to handle some of the change we were going to go through when the platform showed up, was been a pretty unique, pretty fascinating experience. I retired from Westfall 4 years ago, went to work as an advisor for workforce management, and then happy to be here and happy to be working with Rivet.
All right, and this is the only section where you really hear from me at length, and you can tell that I had no help with marketing on this slide. But again, we wanted to start by establishing kind of like a common language around first workforce management softwares and what it means, because if you go out to Google and search for workforce management, you'll get a lot of different stuff. And you'll get a lot of different companies that don't do all the different components of workforce management softwares. And what I'm showing you up here is sort of like the lens that we look at it through at Rivet, but in other industries. And so one, I guess, like there is no company today in construction that does all of these things in a single platform for construction, built vertically for the construction industry. In other industries, retail, restaurant, hospitality, there are workforce management platforms that do all of these things. You know, from on the far left, who are my people, what are their skills, what are their qualifications, my workforce data, to workforce planning, forecasting capacity. Do I need more people? Do I need to lay off people? Do I need to, in construction, bid a job more aggressively to fill a gap so I can keep people on payroll? To the actual scheduling, the day-to-day tactical, who's going to get who on which job? Time and attendance, payroll, hiring and onboarding. All of these things are workforce management components. Again, in these other industries, there's these platforms, 7 Shifts, Legion. These are platforms not for construction that do all of these things. So what we do in construction is all that stuff in the green on the left today. So who are my people? We do workforce planning, workforce capacity planning, the scheduling, the communication of all those sorts of schedules. This is where we see the industry going. This is where we want to go as Rivet, but this is what a software platform looks like with all these components. In construction, these are all point solutions. You'll find time and attendance solutions. You'll find payroll solutions. You'll find hiring and onboarding solutions. You'll find this workforce data, workforce planning, but they're not all under one roof today. So just wanted to like establish that as at first a common language, because it doesn't completely match up directly with the practice of workforce management inside of a construction business. But Brian will talk a little bit more about like what that looks like inside of a business and how it sort of starts to map with the software.
This is my lovely bridge. So we were just talking about there's workforce management stuff out there. You can Google it, this and that and the other. I believe a lot of them aren't in construction, or they don't have a consistent customer base in construction because they're not made for what we're trying to achieve here, right? We have unique spins on these things. So when we talk about workforce management, it's a loose, broad term. What does it really mean? Think about it as you have your workforce. I'm talking to kind of if we have the specialties or the self-performing contractors in the room. It's who are my people, right? Where are they going to be today? Where are they going to be tomorrow? Where do those future jobs or needs arise on those commitments that we have or our pursuits? And then just that simple act of trying to align our people across our projects, communicating that out, keeping everybody aligned and aware in real time of what is going on with the workforce at a strategic level or at a single job or single individual level. Now, where it begins usually and what you may find is there's a lot of spreadsheets, there's a lot of job boards. If you think about it, ask yourself or ask your operation leaders, where do you go to see where everyone is? Where are all my people across all my jobs? The answer is, unfortunately, it's usually going to be these fragmented solutions. And that's what I want to stress is we start off very, very fragmented and siloed. This person does it with spreadsheets. This person uses a job board. We try to have the labor meeting to pull it all together and catch up, right? And it becomes very reactive, and we're not proactive. We don't have the visibility because we haven't been able to consolidate all the people information, all the project information, and that plan across. So if you're thinking about a workforce management, initiative or the business practice, right? I love this bridge graphic here because you can see those trusses in between. You could think those are the categories of workforce management, really. These are these 6 consistent areas of opportunity, if you want to think about it like that. And the way we define them is, forecast. What does that really mean? Everyone is chasing forecasting in this room if you're a contractor, I guarantee it. There's so much work out there. We're trying to find out what work should we really take. Forecasting, you can think of it as how do we plan who should be on this job when, and then what is the culmination or aggregate of all those plans across those jobs, and thus, okay, where's the organization headed, right? The roster side, we get a lot of like, who is in my workforce? And that's where David can really go in deep. What makes our people unique? How do we best leverage them? Certifications, training, stuff like that. Your schedule, that's where we get into the individual allocation across those jobs. Gary is going to go to job A from day A to day Z, and then he's going to go to job number 2 from day Z to double A, whatever it might be. The communication side, how are we actually alerting or reminding everybody of what's going on and when they need to be privy to changes? The information side is really where we're kind of focusing today. You saw our headline about integrations and such like that. I always joke it's more just about getting everybody to see the same information or the right information at the appropriate times. Gary calls it controlled transparency. And then finally, productivity. Are we on track? How do we need to course correct to make sure the labor aspect on the job is going to come in where we expect? These all sit on a practice. Workforce management is a business practice. We can't stress it enough. Just like accounting or estimating, something of the sort, they all have, if you think about how standardized your accounting practice might be or your department, imagine then field operations or labor operations. What does that look like? Do they have the same specific control points and SOPs or recipes for success as accounting might? And so that's the key right there, is that technology piece. All these workforce management platforms do is help consolidate and give you some visibility and a little bit of consistency in how we manage and move our people from job to job. Rob Painter in the opening session for this whole thing, he talked about precision and accuracy, right? And that's, you all are here because you want that accuracy, you want that precision. Really, that's what we're talking about today, is how you can connect your field operations or the labor aspect to the rest of the company and have that same level of visibility, accuracy, and precision. So if you go to my next slide, I like to summarize this with this idea of a symphony. I love the symphony, believe it or not, from my cheery demeanor, but think of your business as really, we have like the different sections of a symphony, right? You have the brass section, the strings, the percussion, and you have these different rows. As we have the labor plan across all of our different projects, right? Whether it's the spreadsheet or the job board, we basically have our operational leaders trying to communicate out the plan. Imagine they're passing out the sheet music, right? The plan is constantly changing though, but the orchestra never stops. Operations doesn't stop. So everyone's continuously playing, right? And everyone grabs the sheet music and turns around and passes it to the next row, and everyone's planning, well, when something changes, what happens? That ops leader passes it back out to row 1, but now row 2 is going off of a different sheet of music, right? And now everyone's constantly playing, and pretty soon, pardon my French, but it sounds like shit, right? So really what we're talking about when we talk about integrating and bringing everybody together is we have the opportunity with a workforce management platform to tie it to our other systems in the business. And what that can look like is basically now I have all of my sections, all of my musicians, all of my foremen, PMs, right? They're all now seeing the music on a tablet maybe, but it affords the operation leaders a chance to edit the music 2 or 3 pages out and look further ahead. And when they make changes, nobody's the wiser. They just keep reading the music and playing, but everybody's on the same page. We've got everybody on the same sheet of music in real time, and it sounds a whole lot better. And these guys can attest to that. So that's my soapbox for it. Where do we go from here? You want to
speak to that a little bit. What Brian's trying to say is he went to the symphony and it turned into a chicken dance. You know, that's kind of how it sounded. But this is important. This is really the crux of it. And I'm more of a process guy than I am a platform guy. So getting everybody on the same sheet of music. What happens every Friday when you have the big reveal of the labor management spreadsheet? Everybody goes through it, depends how well it's communicated, and the minute everyone walks out of the room, that information that was just dispersed amongst your entire team is old. And the only person that is aware of any changes really is the person who owns the spreadsheet. I have the spreadsheet. I own the spreadsheet. I'm not giving it to Brian because he's going to mess it up. I've spent a lot of time on this thing, and I'm really proud of it, and it works well. Well, things happen, right? Construction's changing all the time. And so the beauty of the platform is it is a single source of truth, and it is in real time. So anytime something changes, everyone can see it instantly. And it could be something pretty subtle, it could be something pretty major, but by sharing the information in a controlled manner, and by that I mean, controlled transparency, you don't want your field workers to see everyone's wages, right? You only want a select few people to be able to see that. But you do want them to be able to see where they're working, perhaps, or whatever you decide, you can control what they see. And they're all seeing it at the same time. They're all looking at the same information, the single source of truth. That's huge, because what that does then is starts bringing the team together, and it creates a more collaborative environment. It exposes some of the nuances of what's going on with the labor on a daily basis, and it starts tearing down silos. And now you end up with more of a team approach toward workforce management from a macro level across the entire company, right down to specific projects. And I can go on and on about this, and I think we'll probably talk about profiles and labor curves and that a little bit later, and tying it into your financials. But this is the start. This is really the foundation of getting everybody on the same page.
Well, let me tell you a little bit about how we experience a RIVET and where we were and where we're at now. So CSI has been around for over 30 years, and what got us here is not going to continue to get us where we need to be. A couple of years ago, we realized that our spreadsheet, as good as it was, and we were getting it shared in the cloud on Box, and there was visibility. It just didn't work. It got to a point of diminishing returns for us. The communication broke down, and we had a lot of requests to HR. Hey, can I get some information about this guy? Can I get some information about? They always were looking for information, and RIVET just made sense to leverage our Vista application, all of the data that would synchronize over to RIVET, and now everybody has access to us. Our moves were always communicated to HR. Hey, can you move so-and-so to this job? Can you get this guy? He's terminated. Move this guy over here. And the spreadsheet was really separate from our data, and it worked. But like I said, we got so big, close to 1,500 employees in the field throughout the state of California. It just wasn't manageable anymore. And now that we've gone to RIVET, some of our superintendents, were fighting it. They didn't want it. They thought, we like it the old way. We can just call in. We can just text in. We can just call so-and-so on the phone. And they had all these different ways of communicating to us. And in the office, we were used to so many different modes of communication, inconsistent emails. And then we're trying to communicate to 40 plus different unions throughout the whole state of California, filling labor. It just didn't become right. And with RIVET now, the superintendents, I think I got to the point where they like that they have full control. They move and they place requests. So all their moves and requests are done on the platform, and they have visibility, and there's less communication to HR. The only thing that we do for them now is we just call the halls for labor. But other than that, they manage their platform, and it's what we call, it's kind of like a baseball card. The information of the employee is on there. Anything they need to know. There's a really cool map feature for a lot of the work that we need to do within zip codes. They're able to figure out who lives within a certain job. I mean, there's so many good features, and our superintendents are really happy with it. They're starting to realize, what a great asset has become to their daily work.
While while we're railing on spreadsheets. They're not integrated with this system. So think of it as a pizza pie. You've got every other process has got crust underneath it. It's got a foundation. It has a platform, accounting, estimating, you name it, tools, everything but labor. 40% of our costs and at highest risk has no foundation, is not integrated with the rest of the company. You slide a platform in there and you start integrating this, and now you've created the whole. And it starts working together, and when that happens, that's when you really start seeing the benefit of using a labor management platform.
You guys already hit on a lot of the problems with why you adopted a workforce management solution or looked for one. Why RIVET specifically? Was there like a particular reason? Maybe David, like did you go with RIVET? And yeah.
So we looked at different platforms. There's not too many out there. There were some that were very GC specific. And being a sub, we just felt that RIVET was the best. We liked that your team was very eager to listen to our request and make changes or just consider some of the changes that you've made already. And RIVET was just the right fit for us.
I think a big piece there too is we're talking about tools fit to the task, right? Gary hit on the, if you're self-performing, you might have 40+% of it on labor. We buy our estimators tailored tools. We've got accountants with tailored tools, but ops, the people, it doesn't get a tailored tool usually, and that's where these spreadsheets can be made very fancy. These other tools that Ryan talked about out there, I've worked with them. They are not made for construction, and all it does is it creates a natural limit. The technology of the tool will only support so far, and then the people and the processes have got to pick up the slack. So having a tool fit to the task, I think, is one of the big pieces of why something like RIVET is also made. We're able to focus on just construction, just a specific vertical.
Yeah. So I'll give you an example of where we're going with RIVET. So before it was, a general foreman on the job, maybe calling the superintendent and telling him, hey, I need to move 2 guys, I need 2 guys, or whatever it would be, whatever the request they wanted. Then superintendent would probably call the office or call another superintendent and say, hey, you need someone. And all that's done through the platform now. There's no longer that need. So what we want to go is we eventually want to get to a point where the foreman or general foreman are requesting a change on the job. Superintendent reviews it, approves it, and then it goes its way like a work order. So they approve that, yes, we need more labor. No, we don't. And what's great about the tool is it's got great communication. So it's set up in a way that once the labor is approved, those employees that either need to move to another job, it's all communicated to them through text because of that transaction. So everybody gets one source of truth. Everybody gets the information. In that job, you can put in the information that you repeat yourself. Like it's going to, park in the back, here's a map. All that it's part of the job. So whenever you make a move, it's text to them. They get the text, they click it, they gets them into the platform, and it gives them all the instructions, what they need to know, and they can even confirm that they received it. So you know that you don't have to make that phone call 4 times. You can just do it once. Not only that, but depending on the type of change, there's communication to payroll, because maybe they're in one union, but they need to go to another union and they need to do labor rate changes. So they know up front that there's been a move, not after, which is really important. And maybe the office or maybe the PM needs to know that there's been some changes. So you can create all sorts of different types of communication. Another thing they've created was a dashboard for HR. So HR is like a ticketing system. They can see all the calls that are coming in from the superintendents. Can you make a call out for so and so? We need 3 journeymen and an apprentice, and so our HR staff, they can be on the program in a dashboard, and they see the different orders. And once they get the call out, we get onboarded. They show up onto RIVET. They can fill that call, and it's got all the logging information, so you know how many calls have been in, and so on and so forth.
I want you to talk about your project managers and how you couldn't get them involved.
Okay, so we're a union contractor. We're structured along the lines of the chain of command, kind of the collective bargaining agreement. So the labor was managed primarily by labor, superintendents on down, and the project managers had little to do with labor management, which always struck me as being kind of ridiculous because they're the project manager. Everything but labor, everything but the biggest riskiest cost, right? And so now we have these superintendents that are managing multiple projects. It's a very tough thing to do, to think that, one individual or two, how many you have, can stay on top of remote projects and manage labor the way it should be managed, really without a lot of guidelines, labor planning, comparing it to the earned value analysis, your monthly projections. So on one side, we have the project managers doing the monthly financial projections and projecting where the labor is going to go. And on this side, we have the guys managing the labor, and there's a big gap in between that doesn't work. They're not tied together. And so then what ends up happening is we're sailing along, we get to 80% of the job complete, everything's looking pretty good, the whip's looking pretty good, and all of a sudden we start bleeding out. We were nowhere near where we thought we were, and we start dumping people in, we start throwing money at it. We're creating a labor shortage for ourselves because those people that we're throwing into job A should be over on job B, so we're hiring our way out of that. And our whip looked like a EKG, it just bouncing all over the place, right? And so what's the solution to that? How do you slow that down? What's wrong? And I think we found the solution in the fact that let's get the project managers involved in labor management. These projects would run over on budget, and you'd go to the project manager and you'd say, what happened? Well, don't ask me. I didn't have anything to do with labor. Go ask him. Point across the hall to the superintendent, and you go over, talk to the superintendent, and he'd say, boy, I don't know. I think the estimate was bad. In fact, probably a good thing I was focusing on as much as I was. We probably would have lost another 10%. And go back to your office, and then do it again the next day. It's like Groundhog's Day. How do we stop this? So by getting the project managers involved in the labor management and giving them a tool like that platform where they can see, made all the difference in the world, because now you've got the guy who's doing the monthly projections on your earned value, intimately involved in the actual labor management side of it as well. So now you have a labor plan, you have your earned value analysis. We're marrying them together now. We're aligning them, we're syncing those up. Because if they don't match, something's wrong. If the earned value is off, the labor plan, something's not right. Is it the labor plan? Is it the projection? What is it? Well, you start discovering that at 30% of the job complete versus 80%. Now you have time to make some corrections, and you start to really understand what is going on. The old school idea of let's man this job with as few people as we can for as long as we can. Let's save those hours up front so we have them at the end if we need them. Well, maybe the ceiling grid's going up and you don't have the pipe up there in time, but you're saving money on labor, right? No, you're costing yourself probably twice as much on labor because it's going to come home and you're going to pay the piper for that. And so when these jobs start to bleed out on the end, it might be what you did at 30% that caused it. But when you have the platform and you have the labor curves and you have the earned value all in sync, you've got a really good chance of not allowing that to happen because you're really, now you're managing the job. You're managing the job. The project managers are managing and the superintendents are supervising. And that's where I believe is the optimum point to get, is to get people doing what they're really good at and helping each other succeed.
So you guys started to hit on, financials, right? The WIP and making sure that you actually try to stay on budget, and I think that's like where the ERP starts to come in. And so, both like David at CSI and Gary at Westfall and Company integrated their workforce management system with their ERP. So I want to talk a little bit about the ERP you used, how you integrated. We're at Trimble, obviously, so there'll be some Trimble ERPs here, but the ERP you use, why you did the integration, why it makes sense, or what value did it bring to the business?
So for us to integrate was a no-brainer. I mean, we already have all the data in Vista, and you had a perfect platform that we can bring it to and show off all of our data to our superintendents so they can manage and they can work well with it. So the integration was pretty quick, and it's instantaneous. Our data.
Quick, is that days, months, years?
Oh, I think the integration probably took less than a month. Probably less than that. It was pretty quick. You guys have a cool agent that you already tie everything in, and we were up and running in no time.
What kind of value does it, what does it save you by doing the integration?
So we had someone dedicated to the spreadsheet, and that person's been repurposed, working and doing something different. So we're no longer using that person, but I think that the savings is a lot of our superintendents, like I mentioned again before, I know it's the same thing that I'm saying, but they are no longer having to create emails, unique emails, type all that information in, and maybe they cut and paste, and each superintendent had their own way of communicating to us. At one time, we were going to create a jot form or some kind of automated forms to collect the data uniformly, but we didn't have to do that because of so that saved that piece.
David mentioned they have a person. I see this a lot. There's a designated person trying to manage the data out of the spreadsheets, right? Think about it this way, though. If you don't have a designated person, I guarantee you're probably paying your most skilled or experienced field team leaders to manage a spreadsheet, and that's not. I mean, it's not what they were trained to do, right? And that's where I think a lot of. And by the way, too, I was an infantry officer before I came back to all this. So when it comes to are you going to get these guys to use a tool? That's always what's going on in everybody's head, right? Yeah. No way are my guys going to use some tool. They've been doing it this way 30 years. I get it. Trying to get infantry boys to do this stuff, but when you can give them a tool and tell them you don't have to maintain it, you don't have to stay at the office till 7 trying to update your spreadsheet, gather the look-aheads, whatever it is, it's integrated. We got somebody else doing that. It gives them the opportunity to just make the decisions and move on with their day. And when you lead with that, and we can talk more if anybody has questions about that kind of adoption piece. I don't want to derail us from the integration side here, but I wanted to hit on when you have a person, it sounds almost obscene, but if you don't have that person, it's even worse. Now our most important people are stuck living in them.
Yeah, and we had this person that was doing it and doing a great job, but there was vacation, there was time off, and the backup was sometimes not available, so the spreadsheet wouldn't get updated, and there was frustration and then finger pointing. Well, the reason that this didn't come out right is because the spreadsheet wasn't up to date, and it was silly, really, for a company our size to continue to do this. And we're looking to create a solution internally, but we never did. And finally, we found RIVET, and it's been a great solution since.
Could you trust it? Your spreadsheet?
No.
That's another part of the problem,
No.
right? You don't trust it, so you don't really know if you're looking at the truth or not.
Yeah, we used to get emails all the time. Are you sure? Because I told you to move so-and-so, and he's on this job. And there was a lot of, user errors.
Yeah. And so why wouldn't you integrate it? You have, your labor rates are coming over. Apprentices every, week are changing labor rates. If it's integrated, when those apprentices' labor rates change, and it will change the composite wage rate on a project automatically for you. You know you're looking at the truth, right? You can also, on the projects page, set it up so you can see your WIP. You can see the projection, hours projected at completion, all in one line. You can see what the labor plan's telling you. You can have all this information out in front of you, all gathered from the ERP. Well, I hated trying to drill down in our ERP. I'd have to go over and you'd spend a lot of time on a specific project or certain thing you wanted to find out, and you drill down. Let's integrate it. Let's get it all in one spot, and let's look and bring the information over that we routinely look at, that we care about. And it just updates for you. It's one of the most powerful things that I think anyone can do for their company.
Another thing that we were running into problems is that sometimes the superintendents, an employee was out for a couple of days, didn't want to get off the books and just stay home for a week waiting for another job to come up, and didn't want to leave CSI. And then payroll's like, we didn't have any payroll for this person. Where are they? Superintendents would communicate that to us, but it didn't come through. And now in RIVET, they'll be able to tell us where they're at. Are they out for whatever reason they're out, and we're able to catch things that in payroll and HR because of that.
And you're reacting to that stuff too.
Yeah.
It's payroll that eventually comes back and says, where was this guy? Versus when you've got a tool like this, hey, fit's going to hit the shan, right? The plan is going to change. We're up here talking about having labor plans, forecasts, and a lot of groups we talk to, it's like, we don't do that. It's always going to change. Totally get it, right? That's the beautiful thing about this is when it does change, the right people, the foreman, the PM, the superintendent, wherever the origin of the change originated, when that person is operating in this tool and it's tied to the rest of the company, everybody has visibility into it, they can make those changes. Hey, this guy's leaving, fine. You just updated the plan, and everyone else is now seeing the real-time impacts of that, and now you're no longer waiting for accounting to put it through the platform or the system and say what just went down, right? Now it's right there for everybody to see. Hey, we got this person floating. Let's get them over here. No one's leaving. No one's getting laid off. There's plenty to do. But it allows you to proactively look ahead. And when things change, you're not waiting to feel the effects.
Before I dive into more questions that we have up here, like what questions do you guys have out there in the audience? Any? Go ahead.
I'm curious, what size labor force does this really start to benefit? I'm trying to debate if my company's too big, too small.
Oh, do you want? I have a firm belief here, so I'm just going to throw this out there. CSI is over 1,000 people, right? Westfall is over 400. That being said, I've spoken with, and our customers today, the majority are under 100 people. Under 25 people, I'm going to throw it out there. That's an emotional buy to invest in a tool or not, right? Because at that stage, people, process, technology. Harold Levitt, 1960s. It's a business paper. It's not mine. I wish it was. I'd be a lot richer. But that's key, that people process technology. So under 25 people, you can have really great processes and you can have a spreadsheet, but somebody's still in the hot seat. Somebody's still the labor coordinator and they're the ones dealing with it. So that's when it becomes, hey, are there better things that I could do? Throw some money over here and maybe take care of it. 25 to 50, I think that's a gray area. That is a very skilled operation leader or a business leader wasting their time trying to play phone tag and update a spreadsheet and yada yada. It starts to make more sense as a business decision. Over 50 people, when you get to 100 plus, absolutely no brainer. And it is becoming, if you're over 100, it's starting to really, I'm seeing it over those last few years and across the globe. Australia is jumping on this stuff fast too. It's an absolute business saver. So I think yep.
And I would add to that, it depends what your business model is too. If you're planning on growth, it's a lot easier to get your processes in place with a smaller company, obviously, right? And bring discipline to your company, get your processes in place, throw that platform in, and the whole thing grows together in unison. Regardless of whether or not you put the platform in place or not, you certainly should be working on your processes. They should be consistent across the board. One of the things I always kind of harp on a little bit is the 2-week look ahead is a good example of, boy, this is really a good idea. Let's do 2-week look aheads. So the foreman's out there doing a 2-week look ahead. He knows when he hands it in, the project manager's not doing anything with it, but he does it anyway because he has to. That's the rule. Project manager gets it, and he tosses it up in the upper right-hand corner of his drafting table and never looks at it. And what you did when you allow that to happen is you lit a sparkler in your company. This is a really good idea. Let's make this work and light that sparkler. 6 months go by and no one's doing it, or the processes just start falling apart. Right? And that's just one small example of putting these processes in place and make them sustainable and get them supporting one another. So if you're going to do, say, a 2-week look ahead, put some meaning behind it and get your process in place that you're actually using that as a valuable tool. And once your people start to become educated on the reasonings behind all of this, it just starts building on itself. So the platform, even if you're a 200-person shop, if you don't have your processes in place, there's no software that's going to come in and save you, right? And so that's all part of it. That's workforce management. That's why it's not a platform standalone. It's everything kind of bringing it all together. So I would say it depends on your business model and what you plan to do with it.
Yeah, well, I would add to that to say that at the moment, as our as it is now, I have a company that we're about 65 employees. We're actually the mayor of CSI that coming every day to the people. So either outside electrical contract bill or much. So if you're doing service, you might really want to think about something like this. My question though goes back to I'm actually a labor chart user that I'm dumping.
Yeah, I'm going to tread lightly here because I helped. I was with Labor Chart actually when they first started, and we were first to market, and so we're building stuff for painters, GCs, concrete, electrical, and so you start to try to go down one vertical too far, and you ostracize the rest of your customer base, and it's a rough spot to be in. Long story short, we were acquired, and I decided that I was going to go do something else. Thus, I'm happy to be here. But to your question, one of the things is in this tool, because it's focused on self-perform MEP, you can create that labor plan we talked about and continue to staff against it and see, are you above or below, right? And have that version history. But then those requests you're mentioning too, we can still create said identifiers and kind of placeholders, so to speak. You have the audit trail, but one of the things that we need to move towards, and we can because we're helping just electrical, is I want to start leveraging like the work breakdown structures and the cost packages.
I mean, I think you definitely have to, because if you're, I've seen the really awesome labor planning spreadsheets with the big spikes and the, when you want to front load and do all that. I mean, that stuff is amazing. It looks great. It never works because of the fact that you're not really driving your manpower to what they're supposed to be doing, and you're not really aligning with what you're really doing right now. Task-based, right? We got overhead rough at 80%. We're starting to pull wire. We're starting to do one line or pull wire on one line or whatever you're doing, right? You're not aligning it back, and then it's also not tying into your cost to complete budget, right? Because if you look at it and you're able to plan out how many people you think you're going to need in comparison to the construction schedule, you would know by task what you had in the budget, what you're currently used to job to date, which is easily, every Tuesday whenever your payroll runs, it's easy to get, and then where you're going. So then that ties your cost to complete. Because in my company, my superintendents, I hold them to, I need labor forecast to address cost to complete. Obviously, labor is very expensive, and they have a hard time doing it because they think like, well, I'm a technician by trade, right? I'm a union worker myself. You, as a foreman or a superintendent, you think task-based.
Yep.
The tasks that we have are phase codes, right? So that's how you think. And if you can't align it, it doesn't work.
You're hitting, so the first evolution of these workforce management platforms was really, can I get people to the job, right? And now that's why we're getting to the next phase where, and I like it because it puts pressure on the workforce management platforms, because what you're talking about is now break down the project itself, not just get someone to the job, get them on a certain phase or specific section of said project. So then my field stakeholders know Gary's showing up to my job, but it's not just to my job. It is this subsection or subcategory of said project. And then I want to not just have project totals, but I want to have project specific category totals or breakdown totals. And that's where like we see it, we get the feedback from contractors, and it's where we all need to go. I won't say I'm not going to pretend that we're a perfect fit for you right now in what exactly you're describing, but you are hitting on the commonality that the industry is now to a point where we can see who is where are they going next, how long do I get them on this job, and now I want that next level of detail, and that's why you're seeing, I believe, workforce management platforms start to get trade specific or vertical specific, because there are people in specific trades that need those things, and it's just advancing and evolving the whole category forward. And I think it's exciting, but I also know it's frustrating because certain platforms do and don't do it to the specific detail. So I hope that that's what we can be doing for you, and hopefully we get to talk to you again down the road. But did I miss anything?
So some of our superintendents, that's kind of their wish list to put in phase codes, to add phase codes. So coincidentally, someone that's really interested in that is their San Jose office.
I mean, it also ties back to once you have it and you can forecast, you can communicate, right? You can communicate back to your GC in the case made about the T-grid's about to go in and you didn't have the conduit in. There's a reason why that conduit wasn't in. It's not normally because the foreman doesn't know what they're doing. It's normally because there's an ASI, an RFI, or something that stopped a part of that construction. And as an electrical contractor, you know this as well as I do, you get left holding the bag.
Well said. That's spot on. That's the problem, right? You're talking about breaking it down by cost code, specific task, and why we're having trouble, communicating to the GC, maybe filing a claim, identifying the problems early enough, not being married to a certain drumbeat, but react when you need to so you're at maximum level of productivity. That's what you're talking about. And that's exactly where these platforms are going. They have to. And so the beauty of the integration is that eventually what it will evolve into is the ability to put the labor plan and the ERP or the earned value analysis in maybe even graphical form where you can see exactly what impact that's having when you're making these manpower decisions on a daily, hourly basis. And when you can get it fine-tuned to that degree, then life gets a lot easier for everyone, right? So yeah, tying the financials in, looking at something in a single source of truth again. I know I use that term a lot, but it's important because that's what it is.
We had another couple questions.
I got a dumb question for everybody in this room real quick. What do you guys get? How many people are craft people? Or what do you get when you send your people to the job? What are they looking for? I've been hearing this conversation across the board, and I don't know how many of these different classes I've gone to. What do you give your foreman, your superintendent, when he goes to the job?
What do we give them?
Yeah.
In terms of information?
Yeah. Well, does he have a budget of hours?
Yes.
Okay. And he knows where the hours go, right?
Yes.
Because 9 times out of 10, in every different craft, I'm ironing worker, you're an electrician, we're not giving anybody anything to look at. Like, there's no goal, okay? If you're gonna hang conduit, if you're gonna hang iron, 10 beams, I want 10 beams done in 100 hours, and you got 5 guys to do it, because that's the crew I gave you. And then, we should see on our schedule of values, you spent 60 hours, and you got 5 beams up, still got 5 left. This is where the foreman has to come in, but if we don't give them enough information to say, hey, here's your goal, just so you know, you've spent 60% of your budget, only got 50% of the work done. That means get your ass in gear, and get the rest of it done on time. We're not giving them that. So how can we expect anything else to come up and we're like, hey, did you know the financial this, that, and the other? I don't care. When I look at a budget of hours to get a job done, an apprentice costs the same as a foreman. As far as an hour is an hour. But if I don't give them a budget, how can I ever expect them to do it?
That's you're spot on it. That's where this is kind of ridiculous, but we are trying to give that foreman from home, the field, wherever they are. I can go to one place and I can go to see, at least from the workforce management front, what we're trying to achieve here is, here are the people you're going to have, here's the duration that you're going to have them, and here's how many hours or dollars that you should go through along that way. And then we're sprinkling in that last truss over there, the productivity side you're hitting on. Pipe back in from accounting. You spent this much. Here's what you got left. Does it align with what you're now seeing in Rivet for the people you got and how much you're projected to go through? Right now, today, we don't, unless you have a tool like this, I struggle to see, honestly, a true labor plan. By name individuals, how long are they supposed to be there, and then what is that going to cost you in hours or dollars projected, not remaining, but what's really planned and projected. I don't know if that helps.
Forecast projections is where I have a problem, because everybody wants to look at forecast projections and say, here's where we're gonna go with this. Quite honestly, I think that's gonna end up being your foreman on the job. He's gonna have to figure it out.
Well, I think it's their job anyways, because he's on the job and he can communicate.
Right.
But you're right when you ask the questions. A lot of companies out there, my company, I changed it when I started doing this, right? A lot of companies are hiding
you know, the people in the office have to ask themselves really what they're there for, right? They're there to support the field. If you didn't have the field, you won't need people in the office, all right? So give them the information, right? Remember when plotters first came out and we were plotting things out in color and black and white, and color plotting was really expensive? There were contractors that would print out a colored drawing with all the details, all the different systems, different colors, and then they print out a black and white one, and that's the one they'd send out to the field because they didn't want the guys in the field wrecking the one that was all pretty and cost a lot of money to print. Well, guess what happened? They didn't get the information, just what you're talking about. The information comes in all kinds of different ways. You know, you need tools, you need material, you need information, you need labor. Those are the four things. You take any one of those four things away, you're screwed. You're going to lose money, I'll guarantee it. And when you start thinking about information, you're talking about labor budgets that some contractors hide that from their people because they think they're going to burn all the hours. If they see that they've got a surplus of hours, they're going to burn through it. Well, how can you manage anything in the field when you're there on a daily basis seeing what's going on? If you can't trust that foreman to honor what you're showing them, then you need to get a different foreman, right? I mean, that's as simple as that. And we've had to do that at times when we've recognized that was going on. That does happen. People are people, right? But you cannot give them enough information. You can't give them, you have to flood that job with anything they need and want in order to really set the job up to be successful.
We're not doing all of it. You know, this workforce management platforms today, like, we're not doing all the cost coding stuff that everybody wants. Like, we want to one day, but fact of the matter is nobody's close. But can we give the foreman a place to see and get the information they need on who they've got and how long they can have them, and maybe start to get into what should they be doing and such like that? That's really, I think, kind of like where we're at now. But letting each foreman have visibility into their pieces, and when they're making their moves and trying to be successful in their jobs, they're actually one piece of a much bigger pie. And then as an organization, we can see all of our people across all the jobs to maximize those people in between and across them, whether it's the short day-to-days or whether it's those year-long ones that these guys have too. But by all means, I long for the day when all the information is under one roof, but I just don't believe it's anywhere close. So you're going to have different systems, but if there's consistent data, can we integrate it and save our people from having to, can the information be an asset rather than a burden at the same time?
Yeah, so like you guys had mentioned the look aheads. How does that integrate into the field personnel enter that look ahead in this program?
It's funny because there's different like everybody has their own kind of style to it as well. If some groups, like, it's awesome to hear that you're still planning out with the day-to-day moves, because it's easy for groups to say, we move all the time, it's not worth trying to make a plan. We'll get them there and we'll wait till we need them somewhere else. And it's like, God, you're losing so much money because they're sitting on these jobs longer, not because they're hiding them, sometimes they're hiding them, but also because we just don't know where they're supposed to be next. The look-ahead piece in my mind is, I can create an initial plan. It's always going to change, but I can get the job staffed. I know who's going to be available. I can get them there. I can go to HR. They're already tracking. I can get people where they need to be, when they need to be there. Because I had some kind of a plan initially, when I'm setting those people up, you get even the roughest plan. We would never set off on a movement without having a rough start and end point, know the distance between, and then we're going to hump it out and get there, right? But you have some kind of a plan. So now the look ahead, different people's look aheads, also ask yourself, what is a look ahead? Because it's always different, unfortunately. But at least the aspect of who should be where and how long and when am I going to have guys tapering on or off, now it's part of the bigger plan. So I'm not trying to constantly remake it. I've got it in this tablet, tool, whatever you want to say.
Well, I guess even like as you get into that forecasting or where you're going to have your people at, you talk about the budgets and the man hours and where you're progressing along the line. Can you build that in? Does it integrate into any scheduling either to say, here's a year-long project, but your labor is going to come in like this, it's going to ramp up, come down.
Okay, so back to the 2-week look ahead. The foreman submits that. Whatever form you use, he's planning out, he believes that this is the labor he's gonna need for the next 2 weeks. Well, we have a labor plan in the platform, and so does that coincide with our initial labor plan, our graph, right? Our resource profile? If the answer is yes, then the next question to ask is, does it align with our earned value analysis? And if the answer is yes, we're in sync, we're good to go. And these 2-week look aheads are coming in every week, right? So we're good to go for a week, and that process takes place throughout the entire job. So what should happen, if your productivity is where it should be, when you get to that peak, that 2-week look ahead should turn down after peak, right? And that's really the trickiest part of the job, is when you have to turn that down. You have to turn it down in a timely manner, and you're probably going to get some pushback from the field because they've worked so hard to get it to where it's at. They don't want to see them slip at all, and it's just human nature to hang on to people longer than they need to. That's one of your questions, I think. The other one, I think, related to how do you create the resource profile? How do you get that bell curve? How do you get that trapezoid? Well, there's industry, in the electrical industry now I'm talking, and I know there are in others as well. I'm not as familiar with them, but there's industry standards. There's been case studies done. There's Awad Hanna, the professor at University of Wisconsin, did an extensive research for NECA, and he's published a lot of information along those lines and actually showing you resource profiles for different type of projects. And that's a good start, and they're pretty darn accurate.
And those are in the tool.
And that is in the tool, yep.
But you can't import a schedule that would have your resource descriptor schedule to say this is my career, or whatever you're gonna label that career as, to say,
Well,
that's gonna relate up to my forecasting.
No, you
man
can't.
hours or budget dollars or.
Yeah, you cannot import, like, maybe from Primavera.
Yeah.
No, you can't do that yet.
We'll
I-
eventually be able to do it. We
So,
can't.
yeah, but that is something that will happen as well.
It's more like, where am I building the plan today for the labor side? Nowhere, or in a spreadsheet. Now you have a place to build it, but eventually there's more and more that needs to get tied in. People and projects are a lot of, really, when it comes to the information side, trying to maintain an accurate roster of your people, what makes them unique, certs, trainings, et cetera. Projects. What projects are coming down? When do they start? When do they end? What are the labor hours, dollars, budgets, cost codes, et cetera? Those, I think, are really the epitome of information that's integrated between these two systems today that we see most groups chasing. The next phase is, I'd love to tie it into a GC one. You mentioned claims earlier. We have groups today, one out of North Dakota, one out of San Antonio, Texas, Union, Merit Shop, you name it, and they're able to have the history or the audit trail of, I had this plan and it's changed now, and I got an EKG ramp up, ramp down I didn't expect, and they're winning these claims with the GCs because I have something real to take to them and say, this is what I planned, this is where it's changed because of the change order or help identify it, and they're winning those. And they're getting their compensation for it because there was a plan to go against.
And there's one more thing.
We're in time.
Okay, this will be quick. This is archiving the information for you. Your spreadsheet, you can't take your spreadsheet and look back a year and see what was going on. This you can. This you can look back, and I want to see what was going on June 6th, 2020, and I can see it if I had the platform. I can see who was on what job. Say I get a job very similar that I want to man up, I can actually look at the resource profile, how it actually played out, and apply that to the next job. So the ability to archive this is golden, very powerful.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We are past time. We will be around to answer any additional questions. Just we'll have to, leave the room. But thank you, everybody.
Appreciate the interaction.
Yep. Thank you.